70 million Americans have some type of criminal record affecting almost every financial aspect of their lives, including finding a job, housing, and enhancing their education. UNCA admissions have an open book policy when it comes to students who check yes to having a felony on their application, and we wanted to know a little bit more about that process.
The leadership of that group is representatives from academic and student affairs, and we are looking for an understanding of what happened in that situation, evidence that the person understands what happened as well and has some sense of ownership, and that there's some evidence of learning and growth, that there's evidence of rehabilitative behavior, and then some positive work towards betterment post-incident. And that can be academic-based, that can be employment-based, that can be service-based. We look at everything because what we have to review is what kind of incident it was. Does that person potentially pose a risk to the campus? Could that individual's presence on campus be disruptive? And is there evidence that that person has the ability to be successful from a social, personal, and academic perspective? So we look at it across the board.
And I think the scope of level of importance is, again, individualized. I think there's a large population of people who, especially coming out of the incarcerated environment, for whom education may be the only way. To be perfectly honest with you, there's a population of incarcerated individuals who have an intellectual capacity far superior than a lot of the people who would be worried about them in the classroom. Oftentimes that incarceration is a result of momentary lapses in judgments or impaired judgments or whatever the circumstance may be, but it's not generally overall aptitude. And so sometimes the star examples in the classrooms are people who could have that kind of a past. And so that's what we get our enthusiasm from, is to recognize the ability to right fit somebody with their intellectual capacity with the opportunity to get in there.
Like schools, under federal law, employers are allowed to ask an applicant about their criminal history. Individuals with criminal records are struggling every day to find work, even though federal EEO laws prohibit an employer from discriminating against an applicant's criminal history, which is why Dee Williams, a political activist and chair of the Asheville-Buncombe County NAACP Criminal Justice Reform Committee, led the initiative to ban the box that passed in January of 2016.
A job becomes like a social and a support system sometimes. It's so important that you kind of get normalized, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And that you are not put back into the same social network with what got you in prison in the first place. You know, and that you have something that at risk that you care about, that you don't want to lose, you know. And so I'm pretty much obsessed with the removal, the analysis and removal of any types of barriers to people's lives, particularly economic barriers. And this box on these application statistics say that anytime you have that box as a requisite on an application, that 50% of those applications are thrown into the trash. That's a significant barrier. So my whole thing was, okay, if we can get that off one of the largest employers in this region, then what I can do is work with that executive team from that employer, who happens to be Mission Health, to educate other anchor employers to do the same. So not only are we after Mission, we're after every major employer in Western North Carolina.
The Justice Department states between 60 and 75% of former inmates will not find a job within the first year of release, increasing the chances to recidivate and in return spending more taxpayers' dollars. Mars Hill, instructor of criminal justice and former employee of the FBI and CIA, Bob Ketchup, believes banning the box will not solve the issue and feels that efforts put towards banning the box should be used to push for policy reform instead.
The ban the box piece has little, if any, effect on whether or not they're going to successfully re-enter society. Like, if they decide to have the box on there, then that means that it matters to them. I think that people that hire people with a felony record, they do it consciously, they do it knowingly, because they're either incentivized to do it by the state, in like the Department of Commerce granting a bond for hiring that person, and they can avoid a degree of risk or mitigate it, or they're an institution like Mission that actually wants to help and take part in the community. not everyone has that kind of heart. And so you, I think, put the person with the record at a distinct disadvantage by having a ban the box, because you're disarming the employer who might be willing to give you that interview despite the fact that you have the record.